I'm here and I'm ready. All right. Let me get this situated. Ready. All right. Okay. Now I can see your comments and you can tell me if you're here live or on the replay. Let Facebook do its thing. And we're off to the races. Let me pull out my notes here so that I don't go off on too many tangents today. Okay, so we are talking about why eating clean and, well, why eating healthy and clean isn't enough to get you the results you want. Um, I chose this one because I've been doing a lot of conversations with women, and that's basically the common thing that I hear is like, I'm eating clean, I've changed a lot of my food, I've cut out a bunch of stuff, and it's just like it's not adding up. And I can hear the frustration that they're feeling around it. Hi, Sharon. So, that's why I chose this topic. And that's why I love reaching out into the DMs and starting conversations with you guys, is because I get to see what the hot topics are and then pull a training together to kind of help you with that. So if you ignore me, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let me know if you're here live or you're on the replay. This signals to me that you are an imperfect action taker. And I got asked just last week, well, what is an imperfect action taker? So an imperfect action taker would be someone who moves past just taking this as information. Information is great, but I think that we have a lot of information, and I think that that ends up being like analysis by paralysis. Hi, Cindy. And meaning like you get stuck or you get stalled because you're like, I don't know what to do with all this information. I don't know what's right, what's wrong. One thing tells me this, one thing tells me that. And so an imperfect action taker is about, yes, we want to invest in our learning, but two, we want to take action on it as a result. So you listen to this, you want to take some sort of action as a result of listening to today. And the key word is imperfect, because you do not need to be perfect in terms of taking action. Hi, Gail. And it's about being consistent with your actions as well. The goal with trainings in this community are all about doing simple better. It's not about making things complicated, although we might take complicated kind of topics or what have you, but hopefully I simplify them enough, and hopefully I can break it down in a way that you can be like, okay, that might have felt overwhelming or might have felt like too much, but I can break it down into small steps, and here's the imperfect to consistent action that I can take. And of course, that means that you can always come back here and take what you need, and then come back to the training and take the next steps if you want. So let's dive in. So today's training is addressing the common complaint. Like I said, I'm eating clean, I eat whole foods mostly, I even cook most of my meals at home, I barely eat junk, I barely drink, but nothing is happening, nothing is changing, and I feel stuck, or you feel stuck. And this was just a message that was in my inbox, so I kind of like took it directly, and that's what's guiding us through today's training. I went for a walk today and I am frozen, so bear with me if I keep rubbing my hands. So yes, we want about 80% of our food choices to be whole foods. And I'm going to interchange different words here because some of you will use the reference of whole foods while others will be more inclined towards clean foods. Others will be more natural foods, others healthy foods. So I'm just talking about, hi Sarah, about all those terms together. And you can choose the word that best suits what you feel is applicable to you. And I just want to be able to use them interchangeably. So we want about 80% of our food choices to be coming from that, but 20% of our food, yes, even if you're wanting to lose weight or keep the weight off, can be kind of like those other foods that necessarily aren't defined by whole foods, clean foods, natural foods, healthy foods. And I know that's going to be a sticking point for a lot of people, is because we don't have a healthy relationship with food. And so we think, oh, it's better if I just avoid it. It's better if I just avoid it because then that way I'm not thinking about it. That way, if once I start, I can't stop myself from going. That will be another one. Or the most recent one that came up is when I eat those foods, I get inflamed. Well, that might be true, but probably your inflammation is already high. And so then you're just adding more fuel to the fire. So I know that the 20% of the food is going against a lot of old diets that we might have been, but it's also going to go against this belief that, hey, I can't stop thinking about it. Once I start, I can't stop eating it. And then this idea of like, I just feel better when I don't eat it because I feel so much more inflamed, for example. So the important thing we want to remember now that we are in like perimenopause or menopause is that it will drive up inflammation and can mean that we spend more time clearing out inflammation than losing fat. even though that is what you want. So the key is to have the right macro and micronutrients to make sure that we don't drive up inflammation. So we're going to come back to this point as we go through the training here, because a lot of you maybe are eating clean or whole foods. Again, I don't want to list all of the different ways of saying it, but you get what I'm saying is that you're eating that way, but your inflammation is still up. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that even though you're eating those clean foods, for example, that you're not having a reaction to it, whereas before you didn't, but now that you're in perimenopause or menopause, you are. So the goal here isn't about getting cleaner with your foods or more restrictive with your foods. It's clearing out inflammation. The other thing too is that if the 20% of your food is like, how do you know that it's 20%, right? A lot of us aren't doing the tracking to know if we're in the 20% range or not in the 20% range. And the other thing is sometimes we have this cheat day mentality, which drives up the 20%. So, we're more in a like a 60, 30 or 60, 40%, for example. So why isn't it just focusing on healthy, clean, whole foods? Why isn't that enough? What's the missing part? So the key question here is it enough to make you feel energized, support a better gut health, decrease inflammation, support hormone balance, and your weight loss for good? Because a lot of you're saying, okay, well, I want weight loss, but you're also feeling these other things, right? You're feeling like, I want weight loss, but I want my energy to be back to where it used to be, because at the end of the day, I want a little bit more in my tank, or I want more to like keep up with my grandkids or my kids. You're also saying gut health. You're being like, well, I'm bloated, I'm inflamed, I have gas or whatever, right? So it's, and you're saying inflammation because you're saying like, well, now I have more of a muffin top, or it's like now all of a sudden I can't get rid of that and I never had an issue with that. Or hormone balance because you're just like, well, I know that I'm in perimenopause or menopause and things are shifting and it just doesn't feel good, and you're looking for a hormone diet, which there is no such thing. But anyway, so it's not just weight loss specifically or only when I'm talking to women. It's a combination of all these things that we want to be better at. So can clean eating, whole foods, healthy eating, whatever you want to call it, can it kind of solve all of that for us? So that's what I want to break down for you today. So number one, eating healthy, clean, or whole does not address consistency. Are you doing it 80% of the time? How do you know? And what's the evidence you have, the proof? So a lot of women will say to me, I've eaten clean. And then when you get to the nitty gritty of like, how do you know what's the evidence? They have no evidence because they haven't actually been tracking, or they haven't been tracking long enough, or they're not honest with their tracking, because the 20% where they're not eating healthy, for example, they're not tracking that on top of it. So how do you know you're eating enough, too little, or too much, right? So we know that if you want weight loss, we have to be in a calorie deficit. So even though you're eating clean, whole foods, or healthy, for example, it doesn't mean that you're eating enough. It doesn't mean that you're eating too little, and it doesn't mean that you're eating too much. Why do I say too little? Well, if you listen to some of the previous trainings, you know that too little can cause more stress on our body when our body is already stressed with the hormonal changes that are happening. Likewise, if we toggle between eating too much and too little, too much or too little, same thing is happening, too much stress on the body. So don't forget that this kind of food still contains a lot of calories. For example, nuts and seeds rack up a lot of calories. So a lot of women will be like, well, I just keep some nuts and seeds in my drawer, and when I have an energy crash or whatever in the afternoon, like I just eat that. But they're not realizing like that little container really racks up, where it's like hummus, for example, how much calories are in hummus, for example. So all of those, so all that to say is like, one, you could be eating healthy, clean, and whole foods, for example, but two, you don't have the proof that you're doing it 80% of the time. Number two is you don't know if you're eating enough, too little, or too much. And particularly if the scale is going up or not changing, you're not in the calorie deficit. And then you're forgetting that those foods also still contain calories. And even just looking at the salad you bring for lunch can pack a lot of calories. Likewise with the bowl, because the bowls are in, you get all healthy, but could be over in your calories. So you're just banking on it because it's clean, it's healthy, I've cut out the crap is what you tell me. But you're not considering that it could still be adding up in calories. So, and then also considering, again, is there variation day to day or even on the weekends or the weekdays? Because like I said, are you going too much one day, too little the next day? Because again, that causes stress on the body. The body doesn't know what to expect and is kind of always in defense mode. It doesn't know how to kind of relax, right? And consistency means being within a 200 calorie range, no matter what. So with the clients that I coach, I teach them proteins, veggies, fats, and carbohydrates, not necessarily calories, but they don't want to have such a big range from day 1 to day 2 or over the course of 7 days, for example. They really want to stay within a range. A lot of you are being super inflexible and staying within a specific, you're thinking about a specific target versus a range, but some of you are really flexing depending on what's going on, really big, and you're kind of yo-yoing up and down. So now this never used to matter, again, like as much in perimenopause or menopause. It just matters more. Your body's already stressed because of the hormonal changes, and now we're adding an extra layer. All that means we aren't good at burning calories then. So because your body needs to clear out the stress and work with the stress first, it doesn't care that your mind wants to be burning calories for fat loss, right? We don't think about this when we're just focusing on eating whole foods or healthy or clean eating, however you want to call it, right? I just want to make sure I get all people. Okay, so number 2, so when we focus on eating like this, we aren't necessarily looking at carbs. So now if you're in like late perimenopause or menopause, you grew up in an era where carbs were bad. We were told that low carb kind of was the way to go. This era missed something important. Although we don't need them to survive, we need them to thrive. At this stage of life, we need them to thrive, basically. They still remain the body's like preferred source of energy and required for about 80% of the body's processes. Anywhere from like your brain health, your nervous system functioning properly, your heartbeat. It also becomes muscle sparing at this stage of life, which is what we want. Muscle is kind of harder to retain and build at this stage of life because of the hormonal changes, but because we aren't optimizing all those little things either, right? So not eating enough carbs, as well as not eating enough food, not eating enough protein, not doing resistance training, not enough recovery, not managing your stress levels, all adds to the shebang or the shit show that you might be feel like is going on or hindering you from getting to your goals. So muscle helps with blood sugar control as well. When we have more muscle, our metabolism revs a little bit higher. So what I see when I start coaching women is they aren't seeing that fruit and veggies also contain carbs. And so you're thinking about, well, I'm cutting out breads and I'm cutting out pastas and maybe you're cutting out rice, you're cutting out potatoes. That's generally what I see. But we're not considering that a lot of veggies, particularly root veggies, your corn, your peas, and that sort of thing, your carrots, all contain sugars that are found in carbohydrates. And likewise with fruits, any fruit. Most people just think it's just melon or like bananas, but it's berries and stuff like that too. The thing about fruit and veggies is that they're just lower in calories because they're a lot starchy than some of the other carbohydrates that you might be eating. So basically, like what we're learning is that you don't need carbs to survive. You can go without them, but you do need them to thrive, and you need them to thrive at this stage of life. One of the reasons is because they help you with muscle sparing. So they help protect the muscle that you have as well. And when we have more muscle, our metabolism revs higher. When we have more muscle, our blood sugar is better, more in control, I guess. And then also it helps with brain health, nerve functioning, and your heartbeat. They also provide fiber, which we need for cholesterol, we need for blood sugar regulation, we need for skin health, digestive health, even just energy crashes as well. It helps with cravings, your thyroid function. Just remember your thyroid is like your thermostat, and if your thermostat is not functioning well, then you'll have a harder time losing weight. And we'll get into another step later that will look at how to eat carbs. That is not addressed when we just focus on eating clean or eating whole foods. Again, I'll keep using all of the words so that it's relatable to all of you. So that's the second one. So the first one that we kind of talked about is it doesn't address your consistency. And so when you're thinking about, well, I've been eating clean, I've been eating healthy, I've been eating whole foods, it's not working for me, the first thing you have to ask is, how consistent am I? And I'm always going to go to what's the proof? And then the second one that we just covered is, does healthy eating or clean eating mean that you're not eating carbs? Because we just talked about the value of carbs in your diet, particularly through this stage of life. So number 3 is that clean, healthy foods doesn't address energy or digestion. So, okay, so most women when I coach aren't going for like sometimes they're not going to the bathroom for 2 to 4 days. When they go, it's either like really hard to pass. Sometimes they're telling me it's like pellets, or it really hurts, or it doesn't feel good. And other times they're telling me it's like severe on diarrhea. Not only does this mess your mood and your energy, it drives up kind of that imbalances of hormones and inflammation. And when we have a hormonal imbalance or inflammation, it's not to say that it's impossible, because calorie deficit's always going to win, but that it makes it a little bit harder. And so before, it used to feel really easy to maybe lose the weight. If you've always struggled with weight, maybe that's your story. But now it's just like impossible to lose the 10 pounds, the 20 pounds, or you feel like it's moving in the opposite direction. Well, you got to consider what are the inputs you're putting into your body? What are you doing to influence your hormones negatively or positively? And likewise with inflammation, what are you doing negatively or positively to influence that inflammation? So we can either have too much of a good thing. Well, we no longer have estrogen to keep things in check. More doesn't always mean better. So even though you're eating a lot more clean foods, you now don't have this hormone to keep things in check. So it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to be better the more whole foods or the more clean eating you do. Whole foods takes more energy to digest, makes your body have to work hard to digest. So that can affect your bowel movements, and that can lead to more inflammation because you just can't break down everything properly because you have too much fiber. Then you're not getting enough nutrients from your food because it's too hard for the body, because well, it just increases stress on the body, and that causes cortisol to go up, inflammation to go up, no estrogen to kind of keep the inflammation in check, and that can result in you getting achy joints and gut health issues. So you can see like how it snowballs, and then you're not sleeping, which increases your inflammation because you're not getting that restore. And if your gut is not in a good place, you're going to struggle because it does affect your hormones, because you're not clearing out the excess hormones that are in your body, or you're not clearing out excess toxins there, for example. So you need to break the cycle. You really need to look at the root cause, like what is really going on. Just because eating healthy doesn't mean it's going to pay out, or at least be optimal. So you could be clean. You could be saying like, hey, Cindy, I'm eating whole foods, clean foods, healthy foods. I've changed it all. I've taken out all the foods. Nothing is working. Well, have you considered your digestion? What does that look like? Again, go to previous trainings to kind of get more on that topic. But if your digestion is not working optimally, then it's not about you eating cleaner or healthier or more whole foods. It's about you resolving your digestive issues that maybe weren't there before, but are there now in perimenopause or menopause. Number 4, protein. So again, you could be focusing on clean eating, healthy eating, or whatever, but it doesn't mean that you're eating enough protein. So at this stage of the game, the number one goal is to maintain and build muscle mass. So we want this kind of signal in the body to remain high. We want the body signal to be, hey, you got to retain and you got to build muscle. You don't want to break down muscle. You want that signal to stay low. We can do that with adequate protein intake, which is about 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And this is hard to hit when we're fasting, for example, because some women have been in the inbox saying like, I'm fasting. Well, you have to consider what that does to your hormonal profile at this time, what that does for muscle building at this stage of life, but also does it help you get your protein intake in? So it might be something that worked, but is it something that's optimal for you at this stage of life? So no, some of you might include like protein bars, protein cookies, protein chips into your healthy eating or whole foods. And, it might be time for a real food evaluation, because they're actually processed foods and they do help with getting your protein intake up. However, if we eat too much of them, it can affect your digestion, and then we create a need for the body to prioritize clearing out the inflammation versus weight loss. So we can also eat healthy, clean, and whole, but still be really low in protein. It breaks down more slowly and therefore helps with like your blood sugar spikes and crashes, not to mention cravings and energy crashes. And of course, it supports the repair and the maintenance and maintaining and building your muscle too. So maintaining and building muscle mass means that when you do that through protein, but you do that through resistance training too, it keeps your muscle building signal high and the muscle breakdown signal low. So are you getting an adequate protein? Signs you might not be getting enough could be like fatigue, muscle weakness, hair loss, brittle nails, skin elasticity. Hello, if you've lost a lot of weight, you need you need to boost up your protein to keep your skin elasticity, increased hunger, a slow recovery from injuries or even from procedures or surgeries, a weakened immune system, so you're getting sick a lot, swelling and mood swings, and cravings for sweets too. So even though you're eating clean, healthy, whatever that term you want to use, it does not mean that you're getting adequate protein in your body. And we just covered why that's important at this stage of life. Number 5 is that clean, whole, real foods doesn't look at the how and when you eat, which matters, right? So, for example, one of the rules that I like to imply, particularly if someone has, pre-diabetes, diabetes, or borderline, is no naked carbs. So, looking at food pairing to kind of help with their blood sugar control. So, you're either pairing your carbs with a protein and or a fat, for example. So, are you hitting your fiber even though you're eating clean? That helps with cravings, satiety, and your bowel movements too. Are you eating throughout the day, particularly your protein, to prevent muscle sparing? So, there is a myth that we have to eat, every 2 to 3 hours. That has proven wrong. However, when it comes to muscle building, we know that if we drip protein into our diet throughout the day, then we prevent muscle sparing, meaning like you're sending the signal to your body not only because you're eating more protein, but also because you're sending the signal to your body to say, I want to maintain my muscle and I want to kind of work on building my muscle there. Are you eating slowly and mindfully? Are you eating in a way that supports your stress or does it cause more stress? Are you prioritizing pre and post workout nutrition? Are you what you're eating before bed? Does it actually help you with better sleep? Because yes, I do have coaching clients who eat before bed and that does help with their better sleep. Are you skipping breakfast when cortisol is high and reaching for coffee instead? If you're the kind of woman who's like, I'm not hungry in the morning, chances are I have a high bet on this that you have more snacking at nighttime or you have a bigger meal at nighttime. And there's a correlation between that and skipping breakfast. There's also a correlation between someone who has crappy sleep and drinking a lot of coffee or having high signs of cortisol with the amount of coffee that they're drinking or drinking it in the morning. So even though you're focusing on clean eating, healthy eating, again, however you want to call it, it's not looking at how and when you're eating, all of those kind of questions that I just posed to you. It's not looking at any of that. So you can feel like I'm doing all of the things, Cindy, but we're not doing all of the things that I just listed. We're not looking at all of those different areas. Really what we're just doing is banking on clean eating or healthy eating to get us to where we want to go, but we're missing the boat on some other key factors. Number 6 is stress. It doesn't look at stress. So the types of foods you eat can help with stress. So getting the vitamins and the minerals you need can actually help you decrease inflammation. And when you have decreased inflammation, then a lot of the micronutrients from your food can get to where it needs to go. So eating clean doesn't always address this. So if you're skipping meals, you're eating low carbs, you're eating too little, too much or not enough exercise, not sleeping enough, financial stress, work deadlines, family stress, trauma, kids, relationships, alcohol stress, whatever, alcohol drinking, and even just emotional stressors. So you have the allostatic versus, chronic stress. And even if you're eating clean or whole, it's not necessarily addressing your stress response, basically. So that's number 6. Don't worry, I'm going to wrap this all up nicely so that it all makes sense, because right now it might be feeling overwhelming and you're just like, where do I start, right? Basically, today's training was just getting you to see that eating healthy and whole foods is important. 80% of your diet is to be made up of that if you want to live healthy and you want to, balance out inflammation, hormones, or what have you. However, there are other things that we want to optimize. So if we're just banking on that to carry us through or to carry us through to weight loss, to sustain it, or to even to get through the plateau, we're missing some key components here that need to be added on top of eating healthy or clean. So number 7, it doesn't look at your activity choices. So eating clean, whole foods, but the way you're exercising, is it supporting your goals and your overall body? I think some of us grew up in an era where it's just like burn the calories, burn the calories, burn the calories. But now you're in perimenopause, menopause. That used to work. It doesn't work now, but it doesn't mean that it's optimizing your inflammation. It doesn't mean that it's optimizing your stress load, and it doesn't mean that it's optimizing your hormones. So sometimes we have to focus on pulling back, like walking or exercise intensity, to allow our hormones like cortisol to come down. Workout workouts? Do you feel like you're getting stronger? Are there any indications that your workouts are effective? Is HIIT or cardio making up the bulk of your workouts? Is that adding more stress to your body? Are your workouts sending the signals to the body of, hey, I want to build and maintain muscle? Because again, that helps with insulin, with your sugar levels. Number two, it also helps with your metabolism. It isn't just about the workout being challenging and sweating. It needs to be effective. And a lot of you are doing random YouTube workouts that are focusing a lot on, body weight cardio or what have you, or got Peloton. I love Peloton. You're on your bike, but are you doing the resistance training? Just all sorts of things. So if you're just focusing on clean eating, healthy eating, it's not focusing on that. Number 8, the last one, your hormones. And so we've spent a lot of time here in the previous trainings and in today's training, so I won't go too much in depth here. But basically, if you're eating healthy, real food, clean foods, whole foods, whatever you want to say, does it account for your hormones so that everything is kind of functioning properly? A healthy body will adapt, an unhealthy one won't. So you can blame your hormones however much you want. And I'm in peri or menopause. What we've proven through previous trainings, but also through research, is that it doesn't have as big of effect as what we think. But what does have the biggest effect is our inputs, the things that we're doing around nutrition and exercise and stress and sleep that affect our hormones to do one thing or the other. So when it comes to food, it's asking, is the way I'm eating making me feel good, promoting weight loss, supporting weight maintenance, and overall health? When it comes to exercise, it's asking, is the exercise I'm doing giving me the body type or the changes I want? Chances are you're going to be say yes to one and no to the other, or you're going to say no to both, right? So here's where I see a lot of women getting this wrong. So one, they think that just because they eat healthy, whole foods, clean, real foods, that things will just happen. And they might, especially if you're overeating, like if you're overeating and then you decide to go like clean eating, right? And basically it's not about that you went to clean eating. It's probably more because you went into a calorie deficit through clean eating. But then, if you're just focusing on that, then it misses the boat on everything we just kind of talked about. And just because you changed your eating doesn't mean everything else is optimized. There are internal and external changes that need to be made that can be challenging to kind of wrap your head around. Hence why people do so well with coaching, is because someone else is doing that work for them. And you might think, I'll just eat less calories or I will just work out more. But then we miss the mark on the 8 areas we just mentioned: the consistency, prioritizing protein, the role of carbs at this stage of life, how, when, and why you eat, your stress levels, your hormones, and the type of activity you're doing. You have to consider how this all kind of ties together in perimenopause and menopause. This is why it can feel like you're doing everything and nothing is working, why you feel stuck. You aren't addressing kind of the full picture. It's kind of like one leak in the bucket, but you have a bunch of other leaks happening at the same time. So you never kind of recover or get to where you want to go. So again, today's training was probably packed with a lot, but it was made for you to understand why healthy eating isn't just the one thing we can bank on. It's part of the picture, and it's an important part of the picture, but there are other things that we need to work on or optimize in order to get the results we want, or at least to sustain the results we want. A lot of women, what I see is that they're focusing just on the food part or just on the exercise part. They don't have a strategy that combines both together to optimize for the time, the part of their life that they're in, along with, of course, mindset as well. So if you're listening to this training, or the reason why you signed up for this training is because you're like, yeah, I'm doing all those things and it's not working, then you need to go back to this training and look at the 8 areas. You don't want to focus on all 8 at once, but you might want to focus on optimizing 1 and then coming back to this training and getting 2 and then getting 3 and then getting 4. Now, if you're on this training because you're like, okay, well, I need a hormonal plan for weight loss, what we do for hormones is the exact same thing what we do for sustainable weight loss. It's the same thing. If you're on here because you're like, yeah, my digestion's way off, well, all these things that we just talked about are also going to help you with digestion. And if you're here because your inflammation is high and you want a plan to help you reduce inflammation, this is also where you can start. And so it's just picking the things that you can start with and then gradually building on them there. So You want to consider these trainings like a glass of water. Obviously, it holds value when consumed, not when left untouched. So drinking it once, it'll just give you like momentary benefits, but consistently drinking it will yield maximum results. So I can drink this once, but I'm not going to get the value of the water like I would if I was drinking it consistently every day. And some days I'm drinking my target, and some days I'm just under my target, and that's okay, but I'm consistently taking action towards it. So it's really important that if you want to make progress in this area, you have to move beyond being an information taker to being an imperfect action taker, and you have to start seeing yourself that way. So if you need support outside of this community and these trainings, you can reach out as I coach women 40 plus to, well, stop constantly dieting, know how to make empowered choices, be flexible versus all or nothing, or perfect in that case, and to really just try and get your freedom back. I want you to feel good hormonally. I want you to feel good gut wise, and I want you to reach your weight loss goals with energy and enjoying the process, but most importantly, sustaining it there. And that's what's usually missing for a lot of women. So I hope this training was helpful. Again, at the top of the hour, I said I was going to do simple better, so I hope I did that for you. What I want you to do now is head to the comments and tell me what your imperfect, consistent action is. What are you taking away from this training, and what are you actually going to implement into steps for you? And it could be something super simple, super easy to start. That's okay. But I got to move you out of an information taker into an imperfect action taker. And I hope you'll tell me that in the comments. Okay, Coach Cindy signing off.